Okay, so I've been a Halo fan now for a long time, and I have to be honest, I was not wowed or excited by what was shown at the Xbox event. Now before you say I'm a 343 hater or a PlayStation fanboy, no, I'm not. I still plan on buying this game. I'm not going to let graphics be the deciding factor. But instead of ranting, I want to give 343 and Microsoft analytical feedback. The problem, Microsoft, is not a matter of old salty Halo fanboys just wanting the same old graphics. We don't. Because if that was so, then this would be more appealing than to Halo fans. Those of us who really like Halo 3 don't want to go back to Halo 1 graphics. We want to see Halo ironically evolve. Halo 1 wasn't praised for having graphics that kept us with the times. It was praised for pushing the standard of technology. Our problem, or at least my problem, is when Halo games that came out in 2007 look better than this. And yeah, Infinite does look cleaner, but I explain why that's a bad thing. I'm going to have timestamps if you just want to check out the points that interest you the most, but of all the things I'm going to talk about, please, at least check out my solution to this problem at the end before clicking off. With that said, let's begin. Now if you only watch the gameplay via live streams or at 1080p, then yes, this game is not going to look good as a 4K upload. However, a game shouldn't have to play at 4K in order to look good. I've seen and played many games throughout my life on 1080p, and they look more consistent and beautiful than what I've seen so far. Now there was a lot of people getting upset over the criticisms that were being made about the engine, and I think we need to address that first. I keep hearing statements over and over like, well you can't really judge this when it's still in development, or it's playing in 4K 60 FPS. And okay, I get that. But then I'll hear, well, it was played on the earlier build in order to be the most stable. And to me, if that's so, then why did we see so much pop-in then? You understand what I'm saying? If the argument being made is that this was supposed to be the most stable version, then why did pop-in occur then? And again, I'm still most likely going to get Infinite, but I think once we fully unpack analytically what specifically looks bad, then you'll understand better what I'm talking about. So here are my theories of why Infinite may look this way in no particular order. Theory number 1, consistency. I think the biggest problem here is the word consistent, because parts of this game actually look good, like the cutscenes, the rocks, the grass when it's not disappearing, and the trees. But then you look at things like these columns here that are flat and have no detail, explosions look like paint, and the AR looks like plastic. But if it was my betting money, I think a third of the problem has to do with consistent lighting and shading. If you watch the video, Answered is CGI Getting Worse, made by Center Row, he talks about the feedback he got from actual CGI artists. And one of the artists who worked on Far Cry 5 commented saying that lighting is very important and plays a huge role.
Lighting, for instance, is a big factor, with unnatural lighting causing CGI characters to not gel with the background. So if you're lighting a CGI character or background and it's a bit off, it can cause the whole thing to look off.
Now obviously movie CGI is not the same as what is rendered in video games, but the concepts of making things look realistic still apply. In fact, the first thing that always jumps out to me when looking at games and movies is the lighting. When I played Reach, I always would notice that the lighting was so flat, and it always seemed to make the game look cartoonish compared to Halo 3. But even Reach, as flat as it was, still had gritty detail, which brings me to my next point, which is number 2, a lack of imperfections. As I said before, certain objects like trees, grass, and rocks look good, but then when you look at the AR, the gun looks like rubber. There seems to be a purposely designed artistic choice to make the gun look that way. I think 343 heard people like Late Night Gaming and Hidden Xperia and took their opinions way too far. From what I understand, apparently, and I didn't think this was a problem, but apparently, fans thought there was too much detail in Halo 4 and 5.
You know what one of my biggest gripes is with the Bayformer movies? The look of the Transformers. Every single inch of their body is covered with hundreds of gears and lights and moving pieces. Hell, a single camera shot of a Transformer just talking is quite distracting because it's just standing there, but your brain is like, what's that, what's that, what's that, what's that? And I honestly believe that this is intentional because babies have short attention spans. Now, look, I don't think that level of sleazy, uncreative trash is behind why the Prometheans are the way they are, but I do think that the issue applies here. The old Transformers from Generation 1 are so memorable because each one has a massive difference from the last one. Megatron does not look like Starscream, Optimus Prime does not look like Soundwave, and so on. They all look unique, and identifiable. So they think, hey, let's make these things giant walking industrial factories so that every single shot has so much going on that there's no way we will lose their attention, because honestly, our movie isn't that interesting anyways.
That's where I can see that didn't pan out well. The problem with the columns and guns like the AR is that they look too clean. And clean can be a good thing, as we've seen from Nintendo. Having a clean look isn't always a bad thing. But again, it comes down to consistency. Unlike Nintendo's lineup, which aims more for a clean look, Infinite doesn't seem to know what it wants to be. I feel like there were divided views in the development on how the design should look, and you can see that clearly here. Even in the real film world, professionals will still tell you that adding grit adds realism and value.
So we're doing a little wear and tear. If it looks too shiny, it doesn't look real. This is a new hat. We bought it actually from the Watch Dogs store, so it looks like the video game, but we want to make it a little wear and tear so it looks more real, because real life is wear and tear.
When we look at the assault rifle and compare it to Reach, even Reach with its flat cartoony graphics still had a sense of grit to it. Now I want to be clear to 343, I'm not giving Halo Reach a pass. I'm not a Bungie or 343 fanboy, and never have been. The graphics in Infinite look better than Reach for sure, but honestly, Halo 3 in my opinion looks better than this new game that is coming out 13 years later. And that should not be the case when you are trying to sell a new generation of consoles. Number 3. So I was watching Beardo Benjo's video on the subject, and he actually made a really good point about how 343 may have done this on purpose. And I'll link it in the description if you want to check that out afterwards. But as I was listening to him talk about the distance rendering, something clicked in my mind. What if 343 bit off more than they could chew? You see, 343 has always had big, ambitious ideas that sound great on paper, but then when it comes to actually designing those ideas, they turn out to not be very practical. My third theory is that someone over at 343 had the idea of an open world landscape during one of their board meetings. And on paper it sounds great, but I wonder if during the process they started running into graphical rendering issues that caused the landscape to have problems. It wouldn't surprise me if the reason that only half the graphics look good is because they wanted to render the distant objects better. But as we can see, that didn't pan out well. Now again, these are just theories and we don't fully know why the graphics look like this. But one thing that we can say is that a decent amount of people, including myself, are not impressed at all by the graphics. But there is a solution to that. Just as we saw with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, the fans spoke and the studios listened. Now I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but if we do nothing, then all we'd be left with is complaining without actions. What I propose is to sign my petition on change.org. If you agree with most of what I've said, you can make a difference by sharing this and asking people to sign the petition. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe, and let me know what you think. Comment below what you think about the graphics and what should be done. Anyways, peace.